Welcome back to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show. I'm Craig L. Hayes. I'm here with Jana Dunford. We're going to continue talking about her life. This is episode number 4, and it's the 19th of July, 2026. And we left off, Jana, with you had left Japan. You guys went back to Jacksonville, Illinois. You went back to school and found out that and it's weird that how things change in a year.
For sure. Yeah, my friends that I thought we just were growing up. Everybody made new friends and I wasn't there to be one of them. And, I missed out and I came in at the end of the school year and it wasn't so great. It just really wasn't great. But I didn't have to worry too much about it because, my dad got a new job and he was trying to decide whether we should go to Indiana or we should go to Utah. And he mentioned that. And I said to him, well, which one pays more money? Utah. Well, then let's go to Utah. Like, I didn't care. And so, so we moved
You were just basically done with Jacksonville.
Well, I mean, it was summertime. I honestly didn't care. One way or another where we went, just, get more money. Hey, let's have more money. So we moved to Utah and, it was two things I learned or I noticed when we moved to Utah. We moved to Pleasant View, Utah, which was a little town. I'm not sure how many people were there, maybe a couple thousand people. It wasn't very big, but it was right north of Ogden. And so my dad got a job at Weber State teaching there, and my mom was home. But I'm going to back up just a tiny bit because right at this time there was definitely some marital discord, to put it lightly, I guess, between my parents. And so when we had come back from Japan, my mom immediately, like that next day, it was immediate, went and got a job when we got back from Japan. So when we were there in Illinois, she was not home when we came home from school anymore. She had been home the whole time, always taking care of us, but then she immediately was not there. And so when I came home from that junior high that I didn't like, she would say to me, well, I've only got 15 minutes. I got to go. And so I realized right away that she was not listening anymore, and she didn't have time to listen to me. And so I started, just kind of backing up into my shell a little bit, and
that
was
makes it a little tough.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was tough. And then we moved to Pleasant View, and I started to make new friends there. And I noticed right away when I started into school, as I walked the hallways, that these kids were different. These kids in Utah were different. I saw it in their eyes. Their eyes sparkled. Not like the kids in Illinois. Their eyes were dull. But the kids in Utah, their eyes sparkled and they were pretty. And I was just amazed. I was also amazed by that most of them were not overweight. Most of them were the right weight. Unlike my junior high, where I had come from, most of the kids were overweight there. One of my health teachers even pointed it out one time. He said, there is only one person in this class, or maybe two in our health class, that is the right weight. And he said it was me and another girl. And everyone else in the class was overweight. But when we came to Utah, almost all the kids were the right weight. And they looked so good. And the kids were happy. And I just thought this was amazing to me. I was just so much happier at this junior high. And
what was the reason?
Well, I would have to say is because most of them were LDS. Most of them
I understand
were.
that side, but why would the kids just in Illinois be so heavy?
I don't know. I have no idea, but they were overweight. They were on drugs. They were smoking. Their brains were filled with garbage because it came out their mouths. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the part of town we lived in. I don't know. But the difference between those two schools was dramatic to me. And
that'd be a good study thing for sociology.
I don't know
why that little thing.
I don't know, but I just was so much happier at this junior high. But even so, I did think that Illinois itself, the nature, the landscape was so much prettier than Utah. I thought Utah was so ugly. All the rocks and the dead sagebrush everywhere. Ugh. It was, I just can't believe how, I mean, I had come from Japan. I had been in the Bahamas. I had been to all these places that were so beautiful.
And green.
You know, green. You hike in the mountains of Japan. Wow, is beautiful. And you see waterfalls and you think all these beautiful things in nature. And then you come to Utah with a whole bunch of dead, dry, drought-stricken rocks. And you just think,
you learned what high desert means.
Yeah, it was a very different climate environment. Oh, I was dying. But for the nature, not for the people. The people, I liked the people. But and I enjoyed school. I enjoyed school very much there. But the hard thing about our time in Pleasant View, and we were only there for 2 years, was that my parents divorced there. And I noticed the first sign of a problem that I noticed was on our very last day of our trip in Japan, when we had on our way back from Japan, we had to stop in Hawaii as just part of the trip. And we were in Hawaii, and my dad got out of the car to go see if we could go to the Polynesian Cultural Center to go watch a show or something like that. And we were waiting for him in the car, and my mom said, she said, well, we have the tickets. We could just leave right now. We have the plane tickets. We could leave right now. And I said, without Dad? And she's like, yeah. And I just knew right then something was wrong.
Yeah, that's a good telltale sign.
And I said, well, we can't leave without Dad. And we didn't. You know, we all left together, and my dad didn't know anything about it. But I knew from that one thing that there was a problem. Really serious problem. And so, you know, we went back to Jacksonville for those few months, and I had a miserable time. And then we went to Utah, and I love the school there, but yeah, my parents split up there, and I was, so my 8th grade year, my mom was there when I was there in the 8th grade. And then that summer I went to music camp. I went to band camp, because I would learn clarinet, and I was in the band, and I went to band camp and had a wonderful time. I had a crush on this boy. I was just like, I just had a great old time. And then we got to the final concert of that week. You know, parents are supposed to come watch their kids at concert, you know, and my family all came, but my mom came with her brother, and they did not sit with my dad. So my dad and my siblings sat together, and my mom and her brother sat somewhere else, which was unusual for us. And when we got in the car after the whole thing was over, and my suitcase is in the car, and we're going home, and we stopped for gas. And my dad was out of the car, and while he was out of the car, and my mom's not with us because she went with her brother, my brother, Ben, said to me, Jan, Mom's gone. And I said, no, I don't want to hear that right now. I don't want to hear that. And he said, she's gone. And so when I got home, and I went to her room to verify if my brother was right. I went to her room. I opened her closet, and it was empty. And I opened her drawers, and they were empty. And, my dad wasn't in the room. He was somewhere else, but his clothes were there. And my mom was gone. And that was my experience. And I went downstairs to my room, and I opened up my suitcase, and I took some of my clothes out. I'm a neat and tidy person. I just put my things in neat and tidy into my drawer. But I thought, I wasn't sure what I felt like, but I thought, in the movies, people throw things when they're mad, and that makes them feel better. So I took my clothes and I threw them against the wall, and I thought, that doesn't make me feel any better. So I folded them all up and put them away in my drawer.
Now I got to pick them all up.
And then my friend up the road called and said, hey, you want to go swimming? And I'm like, sure, I'll go swimming. I went swimming at her house, and I remember sitting, kind of swimming around in the pool, holding on to the edge for a minute and thinking, this is not right. I just learned that my mom is gone.
Yeah.
And here I am swimming in a pool. This is not right. And anyway, I just became angry. I became angry. I never cried about it. I just was angry, very angry. And, how can my mom leave? How can she leave us? I was the oldest. I was 14. That meant my little sister was 4.
Yeah.
And, and so that my youngest. And so I was me 14, and then my brother's 12, and my other sister's 10. And then my little sister would have been like 3 or 4, something like that. Probably 4, I think. Anyway, I was just angry. I was really angry. And that year, my 9th grade year, I worked so hard on my school studies. I'm smart, but I wouldn't say I'm a genius. And that was the only year ever in my life I got a 4.0 GPA, because I buried myself in my homework and I worked so hard. I, basically was trying to tune out my family's life, and I just plowed into my homework and I got perfect grades. That year, I should have been taking seminary because it's 9th grade. However, I didn't want one more person telling me, be nice to your mom. I thought, if one more person tells me, be nice to my mom, I'm going to scream. And so I didn't take seminary. My dad was really mad about that. And he said, well, okay, then you can do seminary with me at home. And he gave me a stack of books. And I thought, I absolutely will not learn the gospel from my dad. I absolutely will not do that. And and so, I remember opening like the cover of a book, but I'm like, no, the answer is N-O. And so I, gave him the books back, and he was furious. And he said to me, if you know my dad and how mad he gets and how he can lecture and go on and on, he lectured me, and in no uncertain terms, but I said, I will not do it. I'm not taking seminary, and I'm not going to do it with you. And he yelled, that's your loss. And I said, I will take the loss. And why is this important? Because I was taking a stand. Yeah. All of my life, it just go along with whatever mom and dad say, anytime, anywhere. Get up, help your sister. Okay, I'll do it. Whatever. But at this point, I wouldn't. No, I was standing my ground. And I didn't take seminary. No one at school knew. I was happy at school. I love school. I loved my English teacher. My friends were great. I was there with, I had a couple of best friends, Christy and Kirsty, and I was happy. And we played jokes on this kid, poor John, in band. Sorry, John. Well, but we had a little bit of fun at his expense. It was just funny. We were all buddies. It was fun. But anyway, home life was not fun. And when school got out that year, I was determined that I was going to take care of my brother and my sisters because mom was gone. And, I realized no one's here to cook. No one's here to do laundry. Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to brush their hair in the morning? My little sisters, who can do that? And so I worked really hard, a lot, and I'm sure I helped during the school year too, but especially in the summer, doing their hair, cooking the food, doing the laundry. I tried to get the garden planted. I tried to mow the lawn. I can't say that I was very successful at that, but, but I worked really hard to try to take care of them and show them the kind of love that they should have had. The thing is, I did it all out of anger. I was angry.
Yeah.
But I was there. I wanted, it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair for my little sisters to cry themselves to sleep at night. It wasn't fair to see on their chalkboard, I miss my mommy. I love my mommy. And knowing that those are the first letters they've ever written. And it was heartbreaking to hear them crying at night, and heartbreaking because I don't think my parents are perfect, neither one of them, but I also don't think they're evil people. And we have good intentions. It doesn't mean that we always carry out our intentions properly, My dad is very energetic and very gung-ho. And I think that was hard for my mom. I think it was hard for her. Does it mean it was wrong for my dad to be that way? No. Does it mean it was, that my mom shouldn't have been the way she was? No, it's okay for them to be who they are.
Exactly.
But
it just didn't fit together.
It didn't fit very well.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think it was just really hard. And unfortunately, it hurt. It hurt all of us kids, especially us. And anyway, so I worked really hard that summer. That summer, I really grew up. I stopped being a kid. Because I, was intent making sure that we had food and everything. And I also thought, what if we don't have Christmas this year? Maybe we won't have Christmas. So I got busy. I got busy real quick, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make Christmas presents. In the middle of summer, I went outside. I got some weeds and green ones, and I tied them together, made some wreaths, and so that we could have something for Christmas.
Okay.
And anyway, I was there. I was there when my brother went off to violin lessons, and he crashed on his bike, totally skinned himself up, bloody all down his legs and everywhere. And somebody brought him home. And I saw that, and I'm like, oh, Ben, this is going to hurt. Sit down. And I went and I got the Bactine ointment, and I sprayed. I'm like, I know this is going to sting. Just hang in there. And I, sprayed his legs, and I bandaged him all up, and things like that, just stuff that mom should have been doing. And I was angry, but I was angry. And when I looked in the mirror, because I felt like sometimes I looked like her, I would just get angry looking at myself in the mirror. So angry. And anyway, and that anger lasted for a long time. I want to say another little thing though. While I was there, I had a lot of incredible willpower. I decided that, I think it was my 9th grade summer, that I wasn't going to eat any sugar. And why did this get in my head? I have no idea. Maybe it was a young women's value thing. I think it was, but I'm not really sure. But I decided no sugar. So for the entire summer, I had no candy, no frosting, no any kind of sugar. And I lost 10 pounds. I didn't have 10 pounds to lose, I don't think. But just by doing that, I lost 10 pounds. And it was something that frustrated my dad so much, because he was like, I got you guys donuts for breakfast. I'm like, sorry, won't eat it. Oh, he was so mad. Here he was trying to take care of his kids. And anyway, but yeah, but I made it. I made it all the way to the end of summer, and my young women leaders knew about it. And if I did it, that they were going to buy me a big bag of M&Ms, and I was going to eat them, and they got me one. I did it. I made it all the way. And no sugar. Woo, that whole summer was...
summer without ice cream or popsicles.
Yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't very fun.
Would be hard.
It was, but I was determined. And I do remember... I remember my grandma, my dad's mom, the one whose house we lived in, that she came to visit us for a couple of months. That was when my mom was still there. And I remember that my grandma thought it was awkward because she mentioned something about it to me. She's like, how come your mom is in the other room doing a puzzle? Basically, why is she not visiting with us? And I didn't know the answer to that. I think my mom was mentally checking out of this. But I remember my grandma coming to stay with us. And my grandma was old. And I didn't understand anything about their generation. And I remember, playing hymns on the piano. And as a kid, I did not like the hymns at all. Yeah, they were not even fun or interesting. And I had to play it because I had to play it. And I was going along on the piano, bang, 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 playing the hymns. And I was mad that I had to play the hymns. But my grandma was sitting there the whole time that I was playing this. And she got up at the end and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, I just love hearing the hymns. I felt so bad. I felt so guilty. I'm like, I played him as bad as I was trying to play them as bad as possible because I was so mad about having to do it.
Yeah.
And I just felt so guilty about playing them so poorly. Ugh. But later on, I have to say, a couple years later or something, my dad and I ended up doing a piano organ duet that we were preparing for church for a Sunday. And we were practicing in the chapel by ourselves on like a Saturday or something. And I remember I was on the piano, my dad was on the organ. We were going along practicing this. And while I was playing that, I had this feeling that Grandma was right there. She had passed away. She passed away not very long after she had been at our house. And my dad had come and told me that Grandma was gone. And I kind of felt that because I had started thinking about her all of a sudden. But later on, when we were practicing this duet, I thought to myself, Grandma's right there. She's sitting right there listening to us in the church pews. I thought I can point exactly to where she's sitting. And I think
probably right.
I think she was listening to us. And I felt better about that just because I felt like I could redeem myself from my my grumpy.
You were playing it much better.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway.
Going, that's how it's done.
Yes, that's right. Good job.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. That's right. So anyway, but yeah, so that's what happened. That was the main thing that happened in Pleasant View. And then my dad, when he was mad at me about not taking seminary, he also said at the end, well, if you don't take it this year, will you take it next year? And I said, yes, I will. Well, then we moved again. So life changed again right there. So we moved at the end of my when ninth grade was over, we moved to Bountiful because my best friend, Kirsty Erickson, at the junior high there, her aunt had also recently been divorced, and her mom, the Ericksons, were friends with us, the Collinwoods. They were friends back in Chicago, and they had been in the same ward together. They were graduate students together. And so we had they moved into North Ogden, right just a few minutes away from us, and we were in Pleasant View. And so Kirsten and I ended up being in band together, and we're best buddies. And anyway, so her aunt was also divorced, and so Kirsty's mom was setting up her sister with my dad because they were friends. And my dad was not keen on this at all. He did not want to get remarried. And it took a long time for him to simmer down and to be okay with the idea of going out with somebody else. And when he finally did meet Kathy, the aunt, he was not very nice to her. He was kind of standoffish and things. And it took a while for them to become friends because they were, they had both been hurt, and it takes some time to get over it and put those things behind you. But it took some time, but eventually they decided that they would get married. And so she moved her family from Salt Lake to Bountiful, and we moved ours from Pleasant View to Bountiful. So we met in the middle.
Where is Pleasant View?
Pleasant View is just north of Ogden. Ogden. Okay. And then she was down in the Murray area, so south of Salt Lake. So they moved. So we met in the middle. Bountiful was kind of halfway between for both of us.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with a lot of the areas up there. So
yeah, so we just there's
a lot of villas
kind of moved to the middle.
This villa and that villa.
So that is what happened there. And then we moved to the next chapter of life, which was in Bountiful for my high school years. So I don't know if you wanted to stop there or
I think we're just about at the we're here. So mark down where we are leaving off, and you can make some more notes. And so when we do the next batch of episodes, we can pick up from there, and we'll just pick a time. We'll do that. So,
okay.
Well, thanks a lot for coming in for these, and
thank you. Thanks for doing it.
This will go on. We're going to be doing some This is one of the best ones that we've done. Very detailed, very, very good. This is what the kids need to hear. This is what your grandkids are going to want to hear about Grandma. I mean, these are important things, and that's why I'm trying to do them. So, anyways, thank you for coming in. We're going to continue down the road on some more of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Until then, thank you for listening to Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show.